Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today to discuss the temporary extension of liquor license hours and open container districts. We hope you brought your questions with you today. I'm Jen Ziskin, Executive Director of Mass Restaurants United, and we offer advocacy, education, and community for independent restaurants all across Massachusetts. Earlier this month, MRU was asked to submit testimony in support of expanding local control and creating additional opportunities for restaurants to extend their liquor license hours, and also for allowing towns to have open container districts. While we support giving operators more choices, we know these changes bring questions and concerns. Permitting can feel overwhelming, especially when requirements vary from one municipality to another, and workforce impacts are always top of mind for us. As these temporary measures are rolled out, we want to gather as much feedback as possible from both operators and employees so we can better understand what is working, what challenges exist, and how MRU can help advocate for our industry if these programs become permanent. We'll also share MRU's Massachusetts Municipal Tracker on this topic, created and updated daily by our legislative intern, so you can follow how cities and towns across the Commonwealth are approaching extended hours and open container districts as local decisions are made. I will put the link in the chat during the webinar, so please let us know if you want us to add your municipality to the list. You're welcome to ask your questions live by raising your hand, or please use the Q&A and chat features throughout the webinar to ask your questions. We will also leave time at the end for any additional questions and discussion that you'd like to have. Leading today's conversation is someone many of you already know. Joe McGurk is MRU's Vice President and Chair of our Workers Advocacy Committee, a committee I hope many of you will consider joining. Joe's a longtime bartender and advocate for our industry who's been closely following these developments and engaging with operators across the state. He has assembled an amazing panel representing government, operations, and risk management perspectives. With that, Joe, I will turn it over to you.
Thanks very much, Jen. So I am Joe McGurk. I currently work at Highland Kitchen. And most of you know me as a bar tender, but I've actually been a bar patron and avid one for longer than I've ever attended bar. So this is an issue that's pretty important to me. I like paying attention to what's happening on a local and state level on the way it impacts locally owned restaurants and bars. Not only do I work at them, I love going to them. We do have an awesome panel, and I'd like to introduce them now. I'm going to do this alphabetically, so no one thinks I'm playing favorites. First off, we have Adam Barnoski. Adam is an attorney and partner with RIW in Boston, where he chairs the firm's restaurant and hospitality practice group. He also sits on the board of directors for MRU. After that, we have Adam Rissman. Adam is with Rissman Insurance. Adam is a commercial risk advisor, specializing in helping restaurant owners protect what is most important to them while putting money back into their pocket. Adam, too, sits on our board of directors at MRU. Next up, we have my local bar owner, Cal Sendicott. Cal owns and operates On Shabine in Inman Square, a place really close to my home, great whiskey bar. We also have Carrie Kultzer, excuse me, you know I was going to screw it up. Carrie is the owner and operator of both Grendel's Den Restaurant and Bar and the Sea Hag Restaurant and Bar, both in Hubbard Square. She is the chair of the board of directors for Cambridge Local First, a nonprofit dedicated to promoting a thriving and just local economy by supporting and advocating for small businesses. Carrie serves on MRU's legislative committee. And finally, last but not least, is my good friend, Matthew Nelson. Matty is the Director of Administration and Operations for the City Manager's Office in the City of Cambridge. Matty also oversees the city's Community Events and Celebrations Department. And Matt is known to sometimes still attend bar once in a while. So thank you all very much for joining us. I appreciate everybody doing this on a short period of time. It is a crazy time. These two new rule changes have meant that owner and operators are really busy. So I appreciate you guys taking a little time out to join us today. The way I see the setup, I'd like to talk to Adam first, Adam Barnoski first, and have Adam lead us through what the state has done, what these temporary rule changes mean. So Adam Barnoski, can you take us through that right now?
Sure, sure. And thanks, Joe, and thanks, Jen, for having me, and to everybody participating and watching today. So before we get into the city by city details, the whole picture in brief, as I'm sure many of you know, that the governor earlier this month signed into law. It's a temporary pilot. It really does two things. It allows municipalities to elect to allow the extension of hours for licensees and for the creation of public consumption districts within their community. It's effective on a temporary basis from June 8th. It expires on July 31st. It does two things. It allows 1 extra hour of on-premise service. This is a maximum of 3 a.m., a single hour past your current license closing time, and the creation of public consumption districts. And this is basically where if a licensee is located within a public consumption district that's created by a municipality, under certain rules, they can allow to go service from the restaurant or bar. So everything here is opt-in, it's all voluntary, both on the municipal side and the licensee side. Municipalities can choose to create one, both, or none of these. And for licensees within those communities, they can opt in or decide to not participate. As Jen mentioned, there is a municipal tracker that I believe she shared in the message here, and you can link to that. But so far, we have Boston, Cambridge, Somerville, Worcester, Framingham, Abington. There are likely others, so please, refer to that. That document's going to be the most up to date. With the extended service hours, like I mentioned, it's you can extend for 1 hour past your closing time. That's within the law itself. Local rules apply, so always take a look at that. There is local approval that's required. It's not automatic, so you do have to check local rules, find out what the application process is. We'll go through that in a moment. There's no expansion of the license type, so if you're all alcohol, you'll remain that. If you're beer and wine, you'll remain that. It really relates only to the hour. With the social consumption districts, again, I want to reiterate that this is only for licensed establishments that are located within the designated district. Some municipalities have created numerous districts, some less, some are tight neighborhood confines. So it does make a lot of sense to take a look at specifically what the mapping shows on these. So in Boston's already up and running. Boston licensees can apply. It's a relatively straightforward process. There's no hearing. There's an online application. It's on the city's website at this point in time. It's a single. I think it's a Google form. So you just apply. There's not a public hearing on it. Submitting it, the form doesn't guarantee approval, but they've been pretty quick about getting these through. They also have social districts. One is the Blackstone Block, and the other is Downtown Crossing. There are specific hours where this is allowed. Same as the extension of hours, this is an application that's specific to the consumption district. So you can apply, again, for one, for both, for neither. They do have a whole set of rules. I recommend that operators read the rules, know them, print them, get the employees to understand what they are. Clear plastic containers only. There's 1 16-ounce beverage maximum. There's no outside alcohol that can come into the licensed premise, same as it is now, but also the social consumption district. So there's clear ways that this is monitored throughout the process. Boston actually also has a do's and don'ts list that's made really for consumers, for the public, but as licensees, it's very helpful to understand what the city is putting out there as far as what patrons should do, and you might want to take a look at that, print it out, and put it at your point of sale. Cambridge, Matt Nelson is here. He's from the city of Cambridge. He's going to go into some of their rules and regs and processes in a moment. But in brief, they also have the extension. They also have the public consumption districts. They have two different conditions that I think it's important to note is that there's no new patron entry after 12 a.m. This is going to be on a condition of any license that is granted the extension option. So licensees should be very well of that. Alcohol to go is limited to Section 12. So that's going to be your restaurants, hotels, bars. It's not going to be for farmer breweries, farmer wineries, manufacturers, etc. They've created a lot of districts. Porter Square, Lower Mass Ave, Harvard Square, Inman, Central, Kendall. And their to-go rules are more detailed than Boston. So I recommend taking a look at that. It's one drink per transaction, no bottles of wine to go. There needs to be one point of sale for to-go orders, and that needs to be staffed by the same person. That's really just to be able to control who is buying, how much they're buying, etc. And there's a lot of different rules there as well. Also, the districts have different wristbands that are associated with them. So they have good maps online, and I'm sure Matt can go over a lot of the rest there. But their application process is relatively straightforward too. I believe that they're approving on a weekly basis. All right, so I try to make that as succinct as possible. Certainly available for questions that anybody has in specifics.
I actually have one right off the bat. You'd said something, no alcohol can come back into the building. This is on a personal question, a situation that happened with me and my wife. If a patron buys a to-go container, leaves the premise, can they return to the premise with that drink that they bought from that licensee?
Yeah, I mean, I believe it's a great question, Joe, and I believe that what they're talking about more so is alcohol that was not sold on premise, right? So
Okay.
if you buy a beer from an off-premise retailer, you can't bring it into the consumption district. I don't think there's going to be anything that's going to prevent somebody from buying at your establishment, walking out, walking back in.
Okay. I guess this question's a liability. So, Adam, for me as both a patron and somebody who potentially could be serving this, like I have a million questions. Like the state has said it's okay, but what does that really mean for the business? Do you want to weigh in on that?
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously this is a big change. There's been not a lot of time for carriers and agents to really react and kind of get a full grasp of what's going on, which is not abnormal for the industry. But in the last week or so, I've connected with 4 or 5 different carriers, asked them about this. Most of them have stayed silent so far, which is a little bit surprising. With the changes, as Adam went over very thoroughly, and thank you, Adam, they're giving 1 extra hour per license. You can't go from being open 8 p.m. to 3 a.m. now. It's very limited. You still have to obey by your liquor license. You can't switch from beer and wine to liquor and so forth. So they've been pretty silent so far for this 6-week, 7-week change, where if you're serving, you're open till 1 a.m., you open till 2. They're saying you'll still have coverage between that 1 and 2 a.m. So far, as long as your program is correct for what you do, these changes shouldn't really affect you until after it ends in August. A few things I do want to jump into, especially with the public consumption. What people need to keep in mind, if there's multiple restaurants within this public area and someone comes in and has 1 drink at your bar and then goes elsewhere and something happens either in this public area or outside of it, you're going to be held liable. So being really tight on those wristbands, checking IDs, making sure no outside alcohol comes in, and just really keeping things tight is really big. Because for those people that might go to 4 or 5 different bars, they might come in and have 1 beer at your establishment and then leave. Whatever happens, they'll be tied back to eventually as well. So that extra hour, the public consumption definitely kind of adds some liability to you. But again, for as long as you have a correct liquor liability in place, this won't need to be immediately changed. You don't need to cancel your policies and write a new one. You can go as is. But calling your agent, having them reach out to that carrier and just making sure there's no changes for that one company is never a bad idea. And if anyone wants to call me and kind of explore, we're happy to do that as well. Again, so the public zones definitely are a little bit of a gray area as they don't happen a lot. The other thing I want to be clear on is your service offering. So making sure you stick to your license is huge. Adding specials, adding large scale drinks, adding that might be out of the ordinary could, raise a red flag to carriers. Now, a lot of this won't happen immediately. You're not going to make a change today and next week be dropped by your insurance. But when it comes up at renewal, they're going to look at sales versus liquor sales. They're going to look at your website, any ads you had for these months, and they might decide to make changes to your policy to drop you. And if this does get extended, bigger changes will happen. So what I'd say is just make sure you're proactive. Don't do anything out of the ordinary, and contact your agent if you do have questions. And just be as careful as you can about this stuff. Again, the later you're open, the more liquor being served, more problems happen. So making sure you're protected, have the liquor liability, the umbrella, and you'll be in good shape.
I think you bring up, there's two things I want to comment on. And one that I think it's important for anybody who serves alcohol to remember what you said about liability as being the place that they had their last drink is the truth in this new time, but it's always been the truth. And that's one of the things that restaurant workers should be aware of. And I think that most of them are. But yeah, being really due diligence to make sure that your guests are leaving there in good shape. The other thing you said that I think that we didn't mention we should really talk about is that this is a really awesome opportunity to really experiment, right? These two temporary law changes will end on July 31st, but there's no doubt in my mind that there will be people who are looking to make these more permanent. And not unrelated to that is the state talking about the reintroduction of happy hour, right? So we've had a 42-year hiatus of happy hour in Massachusetts. These three things are really, I mean, the Tartan Army loves Boston over New York, and that's an awesome thing, right? And part of that is because we have made the city friendlier to some of these rule changes. But I think as restaurant owners and workers and people who serve alcohol, we should really take this opportunity to take a look at what this means for each of our businesses and how should we go forward and support this if some of these changes are proposed to be permanent. So, all right, so people have talked about Maddie a little bit, and I think so. Matt Nelson has been instrumental in getting the district set up in Cambridge and in getting the open container. And as a person who lives near one of those districts, like I want to see if I can link it, but Inman Square last Friday was simply an awesome event. And so first off, thanks, Maddie, for making that happen. You and Bertie's making that happen. But I also want to ask you, how did the process go with the city? Tell us any of the how the conversations went. Was there any pushback and how you guys came up with the decisions the way you did?
Sure. Thanks, Joe, and thanks everyone for having me. Joe and I go way back, so he's got permission to say Maddie, but
I'm sorry.
Now everyone does, so it's all good. Wherever I go, I become Maddie, which is fine. But yeah, so just to recap and also clear a few things up, just in terms of how everything moved. It all happened really fast once the legislation was passed. But I do want to give credit to our license commission. They took a vote in the spring, which basically allowed them to pivot or update, both for the extra hour and if the city was going to recommend the social consumption districts. And so there was already a license commission meeting scheduled for June 10th. As folks know, the legislation was passed on the 8th. And so on the city side, we went and wrote our policy and finalized our plans for social consumption that Tuesday, the 9th, got buy-in from public safety, from public works, thinking that there might be an issue with increased trash, and buy-in obviously from our city manager and deputy city manager, who's also our chief operating officer. My co-conspirator, Hardy Safari, who's the executive director of an economic opportunity division, and I have worked closely together for over 10 years. And that week, the week of June 8th, felt a lot like what we did during COVID when we started a pivot. Everything happened really fast, and we were really trying to be as clear and concise as possible, and also we had to make some quick decisions without engaging the restaurant community right away. And so we wanted to make sure whatever decisions we were making wasn't going to put any of our restaurant owners in tough spots. We did get buy-in from all of our business associations that represent the districts that we ended up drawing for social consumption. So Central Square BID, Kendall Square Association, the East Cambridge Business Association, which represents Inman Square, the Harvard Square Business Association. We also got overwhelming support from our Cambridge Office for Tourism, which has been a key partner in all of the FIFA work we've been doing as well. And so as folks know, this was in large part, this legislation was passed to celebrate all of the great things happening in the state. Obviously, there's FIFA and the World Cup. We also have the tall ships and the 250th. And so, you know, the city really has been leaning into tourism and leaning into economic activity. Last year with Rev 250 and then this year with FIFA. And so this seemed like a no-brainer for us to jump on fast. And so we put that policy together and presented, Parties and I presented to the License Commission for approval on Wednesday the 10th. Tuesday, I ordered 30,000 wristbands. I texted Kari and I asked her if that was enough. And some of the colors in hindsight, I probably should have ordered more for Central and more for Inman and Harvard and maybe less for Porter. But you know, those kind of decisions are happening pretty fast and quick. So we've been pivoting as we've moved along. I just wanted to call out a few things. So there are some rules License Commission put together as well as the city. One is, you know, similar to Boston. I actually think Boston mirrored our rules for the most part. Ours were out first. It's good to have at least a lot of overlap because a lot of our tourists don't know what city they're in all the time. And so it's, you know, we were trying to make sure we overlapped as much as possible. In terms of the 12 a.m., the License Commission actually adjusted that. So the initial vote they took was, this was something that I believe Adam was calling out. So the initial vote that they took, we were actually mirroring what we do for the additional hour license change for New Year's Eve. And so there are a lot of establishments in the city that, you know, sometimes ask the License Commission for an extra hour on New Year's Eve. And so there was some language in there that was still in there from New Year's Eve, which is, you know, 12 a.m. when the ball drops. So they've adjusted that. So if you get the extra hour, no one can be let in for that extra hour. So if you're a 3 a.m., you got to stop letting people in at 2 and so forth. So just to clear that up, that was a vote that was taken early, and then they adjusted that administratively the following week, I believe, on June 15th. And then in terms of the one person selling to go, the intent there is if you're setting up an operation that's only that is only doing to go, I believe Oak Bistro had that set up in Inman Square. That's got to be the same person. But if you go to a bar and have a beer and then want to take half that beer to go, you can do that. The bartender can administer the bracelet and pour that rest of the beer in a disposable clear cup, write their name on it, and that person can take it with you. Doesn't have to be.
Not to interrupt, Matt, but that's also if you set up outside, right? That's what Oak Bistro did. You have to have one person take the order and one person make the drink, right?
Yeah. So that's how we're running that there. And it was just, and to your point, Adam, it is if you are going to be doing to go and also to the liability perspective, they wanted to write in something there that there's someone who's been spotting the same person as they've come up and order, frequent beers, walk away, come back. So that way they at least have the same person giving eyes to that customer. The last thing I'll say is, as Jill mentioned, this is an opportunity to learn and grow. We've got a unanimous council order from our city council asking us to pursue if we can make this permanent or extend it. And so obviously we know that there's a lot of state legislation and and work that would have to be done with that. But the council's supportive so far. I'll be interested to hear from Kari and Cal, but so far it seems like business is pretty supportive and happy to be here and listen, and also happy to hear if there's any feedback in terms of pivoting in this sprint we have for the next 5 weeks.
Thank you very much, Matthew. All right, let's talk to the owners and operators. I think that it's important to hear from these guys. So either of you, it's a conversation. If either of you want to kick it off, how you went through that process, was it easy? I really would like to hear what any feedback you might have gotten from staff. So please.
I guess I'll start. Yeah, the process of like getting the application was pretty quick. Honestly, it was quicker than any other thing. I think just because like it kind of happened so fast, there was sort of word about it, and then kind of like rumors about it, and then it kind of was like voted on, and then we applied immediately and got approved like in the next hour or so. So unfortunately, I told my staff if we were gonna do it, it wouldn't just be sprung on them one day. But as life is, it was just sprung on them one day and said, "No, we're open for another hour." So it's typical small business owner. I'm not gonna do this, and then you do exactly the opposite. As far as what it's meant for us the last couple of weeks, I mean, outside of just like the FIFA and the energy of the city being like way up, which usually is like kind of, especially in our neighborhood, kind of a boring time of year. Like a lot of people go away. It's had a lot of energy. A lot of people have been very open to what has been going on. The 3 a.m. thing has like been a lot of fun. So there's people that usually, late workers, late night people that don't get a chance to go sit down and get served or have a beer somewhere else or have, just a moment to decompress before they go home. So they really appreciate that. And then as far as the to go thing, people love it. It's been really easy to manage. Now, frankly, my clientele is, between the ages of 28 and 60. So we never really have like a real like problem with anybody acting too immature. But like, yeah, during the games and whatnot, people are electing to buy the drink and stand outside and watch it through the windows because they want to enjoy the weather. And then, you know, and to piggyback off on like what Joe said about last Friday, like that watch party and everything, like that's something that we need to be doing in our communities more often during the summer. Like, there's no reason to just throw up our hands and say like, well, we're an inland city, like, and but the students go away and everybody goes to the Cape. Like, we could still like do things like that don't have to be surrounded by like FIFA, but like little music festivals and things like that. I mean, there should be a reason why everybody should come to like our square, and I think right now this is like one of the things like you can kind of walk around and have fun and enjoy like this kind of great restaurant mile that we have in Inman Square. So it's I really like it. I'm a huge advocate for it, not only because it's been beneficial to my business, but I think it's just beneficial to the community. It's been fun. Like, I don't know why sometimes we make it so hard to have fun sometimes, and I think that's something you need to focus on more, especially with the current climate as it is. Need to let loose a little bit more and more. So I guess that's my 2 cents.
The Scots taught us something. I think that's something the Tartan Army has brought to us. Kyrie.
Yeah, I agree that, it's a lot of it is just the opportunity to be able to make a fun space without having to go through all these extra hoops to make it so serious and have to pull out a 1-day alcohol permit and set up a whole beer garden outside because we have all these places here, like it's a schlep, I have to say. It's just like hard work to implement a beer garden and do all these elaborate municipal processes to be able to have a drink outdoors. This just like makes it so much easier to when there's an opportunity, be able to just use the public space. And we've got these really narrow areas and we've got these like dense places that were built without plazas and it's a lot of public space. But like if you were in a development out in like, Assembly Row, you could turn it into a beer garden like overnight with no big deal. It's like it makes the inner city areas more competitive with like a developed like mall in terms of being able to activate for things like what you're saying, like a music festival or a watch party or a movie night or anything. So I love that about it. Um, I did want to chime in on like some of the rules and like getting the word out to your staff on how to like, do to handle this in a really short and really short notice. Um, we basically set up a system where the bartenders essentially are making the drinks in the glassware that we normally make them in, and then the guest has their cup with the name of the business on it. The wristband is initialed by my staff member who ID'd them. So when we see that we know that we actually ID'd that person and it's not someplace else, that's helpful. That might be a good thing for people to consider if they're in a place with a lot of bars. Um, and we Sharpie the check number on there, so it gets matched to the ticket. So you're putting that drink from that ticket into that cup that has that ticket number on it, and we also write the drink on it so that there's really a lot of chain of custody and some no sense that like, well, this IPA now has clearly a rum and coke in it, and there's no ticket number 4 with that on it, so you just filled this up on your own and we didn't sell you that drink. These are ways of us protecting ourselves from situations where a customer could abuse their to-go cup with like their own drinks from another source. And so those are some things that we did. Highly recommend. Keeps it really easier to police. But the truth is that unless there's like a really big event happening right in front of your place, the the adoption's like sort of schmedium. Like it's not like a lot. We're not getting inundated with people just like crashing us for a million to-go drinks. It's just nice that they can have them when they want them and they can take something out. And it's been very simple and easy, and it just reduces friction with tourists who don't understand that we have all these crazy rules where you can't walk out with a beer. So many other cities and especially internationally you can. So it makes it a lot easier to be able to just say yes. That's my take. And yeah, a couple of best practices. Oh, the other thing I want to mention about the license is that you do have to print out your license every week and repost it. So check your portal, and go and print out that new license, which is where I discovered that they raised the entry hour up to 1 a.m. because we have a 2 a.m. license. Now it's not midnight, it's 1 a.m. Thank you very much, Matt. That was really appreciated because it was just like, what? We have to just sit here for 2 hours in a lock-in? So cool. Uh, if anybody has any questions on and any like, thoughts on how they like handling it, or any new ideas, but I just like the idea of marking that cup with as much as you can for your own staff's ease of managing the workflow.
I think that's awesome. I think that's really good. I like, um, that's actually one of the challenges I was thinking about when I was standing there. I don't know if you can see it in the chat, but I tried to link a photo I took on Friday. Um, like Harry said, there's no I don't think that you're going to see on an off day like an inundation of people looking for to-go drinks. But that day, it was nuts, and I was stressed out as just a patron of how. I mean, as a like person wandering around, how bars were dealing with this. And then of course I was acting like the cop, thinking, "Hey, that guy got that drink is not one of. They just bought that in a liquor store. It's not my problem." But it does make me think about liability, and I think what you're doing is awesome because I'm sure Adam can talk about the fact that like, yeah, there potentially are problems without doing due diligence, right? Like, um, so do you think that your offering drinks to take away has increased sales, or has it like would we see a small bump from that if we made that a rule? Like, would restaurants benefit from that in bars?
Uh, I don't think I think what it will ultimately end up doing if we keep this thing around is I don't think people will like walk by and be like, "Can I grab a beer to go?" Um, like they do in like New Orleans where you can buy like a 6-pack of beer and
Right.
like
Yeah.
but I definitely think what it could create is people kind of bouncing around and having like a little bit more of a crawl, being like, oh, because you might have that one straggling friend be like, just put in a to-go cup and we'll get out of here. So I think that's kind of what it will kind of create more of a kind of a bouncing around sort of night. You know what I mean? Of you
Yeah. And
so
I guess
you
the
won't
sample
could
is too hard right now because you've only there's been an event, so you don't really have the data yet to say like, oh yeah, our
yeah
Wednesdays
like
just got 5% better because we had
yeah, because I mean, like on Friday when when that game let out, we did get a lot of to-go orders because it was like so new and novel. So like everybody, like it was actually between like I think whenever that game ended, like 6 o'clock, between 6 and 7 or 7:30, we had to be like, "Do you want it to go?" Because they would just be like 3 Guinness, and then you would put it in 3 pint glasses, and they'd be like, "Oh, to go." So then you'd have to. So
did either of you get a chance to notice at all? I just asked this as a tipped employee. Do people tip on them as if they were drinking them inside?
I would think I would say so. I mean
Okay.
the CCs at the end of the night reflected that.
Okay.
I think
Most of us are using handhelds that have a tip suggestion, so people tend to like default to it.
Yeah.
yeah.
And both of you, would you at this point, would you support this being made permanent for Cambridge?
Yeah,
Both of
I
those
think
two.
both.
Yeah.
Well, I think both things. Yeah.
I also wanted to chime in on the extended hours, but before I do that, I would say that when it comes to like actually increasing sales, it's more about like the opportunities to like essentially drive business when you wouldn't be able to. Like so, in the summer like the students leave. Well, I could work with like a vintage store and do a flea market outside on the street in front of me. And then instead of having to go get a whole bunch of vendors to activate the flea market, they could just come in and get a beer and then go shop vintage. It just
Yeah.
simplifies activating the space, and that drives business. The takeout sales don't really necessarily drive that much business because they're either going to come inside and drink it inside and then leave. But this makes it a little bit more friendly to like an event. Two, the extended hours are desirable in general, but like the problem here is that uh you may not always want to we never had a 2 a.m. license because we never wanted to commit to staying open till 2 a.m. because we were open also for lunch and it didn't make sense to get that extra couple $100 on that last hour and then like have my staff not be able to come in for lunch. Um, so the thing is that I would like there to be more flexibility about whether or not we get a license to go to those extended hours and then make operational decisions about when and which days we specifically stay open to those fully extended hours because we are the law as it is written now says that if we're have a 2 a.m. license, we have to stay open till 2 a.m. every single day that we are licensed to, but we could choose to open late. And that wouldn't penalize us. And that's a lot of restaurants don't understand that. And that is something that um, if we have this new flexibility, we should consider making it more of a business decision.
Correct me if I'm wrong. That's a local license commission decision. That is not a state decision.
That's a question for Adam.
I'm pretty sure that that's true though, that if you have a license that says you're open till 2, you have to stay open till that hour. If you don't, you lose it. Like that's, but I mean, I've never had to, never had to apply for a license. So, but yeah, I'm curious about that. I thought that might be a local statute rather than.
Yeah, I could chime in. So the question is do you have to stay open until your closing hour? I mean that yeah, I got to take the lawyerly stance of it really it just depends on the municipality. Some will allow you flexibility there. There's a lot of licenses that have general closing hours 7 days a week, and they choose to close earlier without issue. There are other licensees that have run into some issues, with that. So, in my practice, I've not been part of a violation hearing that was pulled in due to closing prior to a designated closing hour. there certainly are issues with non-use, but I find that for the most part, there's flexibility. I think if you're reading the rigid rules of the law, you have to be, but in practicality, it's different.
Thanks, Adam.
Joe, and if I just wanted to jump in really quick on a previous, just about the sales. I think Kari hit the nail on the head there with this is not necessarily intended to send thousands of people into bars, new customers that just were going to drink to go. But I think it's all inclusive into bringing more fun and joy to our communities. And that doesn't just have to be related to alcohol consumption, obviously, but it certainly helps the vibe in our business districts. And it just kind of adds another tool to our toolbox. Over the last few years, we've started Cambridge Plays and Cambridge Nights and giving more opportunities for block parties and more grants for our neighbors to have bouncy houses on their streets. And this is just another tool in the toolbox to add to our region. And so far, we have seen very few issues or incidents where this has caused, any sort of, noise issues or disturbances. We're a dense urban city, so those things happen, whether someone's got a clear plastic cup with a restaurant's name on it or not. And so this is just an opportunity to add some joy and fun to our city. And hopefully when you add joy and fun, people like to spend money and go out and have fun and go to our businesses and shop and dine. And so I think if this goes beyond a pilot, I mean, we're gonna run some numbers. We're gonna ask our districts to see if they can find some numbers. But if this goes a little bit longer or more permanent, I think there would be opportunities to really do some deep dives and where we can benefit even more. That's where my partner in crime, Pardis, and economic development shows their muscle.
I just want to, for all our guests, I want to say thanks. This has been pretty Cambridge heavy. Like I said, Cambridge was one of the first cities to implement both of these policies. And frankly, I have relationships with folks around Cambridge. So sometimes we get a little into the weeds on particular Cambridge issues, but hopefully that's information for folks all across the state. Everybody who's here is probably pretty busy right now. Unless we have any more questions, I was thinking that maybe this would be a good place to wrap it up, unless some folks have questions or comments. Well, thank you everyone for joining us. Like Jen said, this will be available on our website. You can look at this, maybe dig deeper on it. Feel free to reach out to us with any questions. To our panel, thank you so very much for you taking your time in this incredibly busy period, and thank you for your really well-informed insights. So thanks for everybody.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks for coming.
Thanks for having us.
Go World Cup.